The violet skies of Zentha Prime stretched endlessly above the crystalline spires of the galactic Senate chambers. The air hummed with the low-frequency chatter of 100 species, their voices blending into a dissonant chorus of clicks, whistles, and modulated speech. Captain Elias Vance adjusted the collar of his dress uniform, the fabric stiff against the scar tissue that ran down his neck. His cybernetic left hand flexed unconsciously, the servos whirring softly as he stepped onto the central dais. The chamber fell silent as the human-attached Fae approached the speaking platform. Senator Vrix of the Zeperian Dominion loomed over him from the elevated council tier, his obsidian carapace gleaming under the artificial light, 4 arms folded across his chest in a gesture of polite disinterest. Earth's petition for full Federation membership, Vance began, his voice carrying through the acoustically perfect chamber, is not just a request for recognition, it is an offer of partnership. He tapped a control on the podium, and holographic displays flickered to life above him, records of human military campaigns, technological advancements, and cultural achievements spanning centuries. A ripple of amusement passed through the assembled delegates. Ambassador Krell of the Vorak Collective leaned forward, his bioluminescent frills pulsing with barely contained mirth. "Captain Vance," he interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. "These records are quaint. Your wars were fought with primitive kinetics, chemical propellants, unguided projectiles." His frills flared brighter. "You barely survived your own nuclear age. What could you possibly offer the stars that we do not already possess?" Laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound like shattering glass and buzzing insects. Vance's jaw tightened, but his posture remained rigid. "Ambassador," he said, keeping his voice level, "humanity's strength has never been in the tools we wield, but in how we wield them. Our history is a series of near extinctions," Krell cut in again. "The Federation has no need for a species so adept at self-destruction." Senator Vrix raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Captain Vance," he said, his voice a deep rumble, "the Zeperian Dominion has reviewed your petition at length. While your technological progress is notable for a pre-FTL civilization, your species lacks the stability required for Federation membership." He gestured to the holograms. "Your own records show this. 7 global conflicts in your last 2 centuries alone. Billions dead. Entire ecosystems destroyed." Vance's cybernetic fingers curled into a fist. "Those conflicts shaped us," he countered. "They forced us to evolve, not just technologically, but socially. We learned the cost of division, the value of unity." "Unity," Krell scoffed. "Your planet remains fractured into competing nation-states. Even now, your colonies squabble over resources." A murmur of agreement spread through the chamber. Vance could feel the weight of hundreds of alien eyes on him, some curious, most dismissive. "Earth's political divisions are a strength, not a weakness," he said, raising his voice. "Competition drives innovation. Diversity of thought breeds resilience. The Federation claims to value these principles." "Enough." Senator Vrix's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. "The Council has heard enough." He turned to the assembled delegates, all in favor of denying Earth's petition. A sea of glowing orbs, tentacles, and appendages rose in unison. Not a single species abstained. Vance stood motionless as the vote was recorded. The holographic displays winked out one by one, leaving him standing alone in the sudden dimness. "The decision is unanimous," Vrix announced. "Earth's petition for Federation membership is denied. This session is adjourned." The chamber erupted into movement as delegates rose from their seats, already discussing matters of greater importance. Krell paused as he passed Vance, his frills flickering with amusement. "Perhaps in another few centuries, human," he said, leaning close. "If your kind survives that long." Vance didn't flinch. "You're making a mistake," he said quietly. Krell's laughter followed him as he turned away. "Oh, I doubt that." The great doors of the Senate chambers hissed open, flooding the room with the violet light of Zentha Prime's sky. Vance stepped out into the corridor, his boots ringing against the polished floor. Behind him, The doors sealed with a final, echoing thud. He didn't look back. The Scorpius reach stretched before them, like a graveyard of forgotten gods. Commander Lena Cortez adjusted the magnification on her visor, the derelict hulls of ancient human warships floating in the silence of dead space. Their surfaces were pitted with micrometeorite impacts, their armor blackened by centuries of cosmic radiation. The salvage team's shuttle drifted past the skeletal remains of cruisers and carriers, their names long erased by time. "Still think this is a waste of time, Doc?" Cortez asked. Her knuckles tightening around the control yoke, the tattoos across her fingers, military insignia from 3 different wars, flexed as she guided them closer to their target. Dr. Rael Tvek clicked his mandibles in disapproval, his 6 eyes blinking in alternating patterns. "These vessels are over 400 years old," the Zenthari scientist said, his voice dripping with condescension. "My people were charting quantum singularities when your ancestors were still burning fossil fuels. What possible tactical advantage could these relics provide?" Cortez smirked and punched the thrusters. The shuttle banked hard, throwing Tvek against his restraints as they swung toward the largest wreck in the graveyard. The USN Defiance loomed before them, its Titan-class frame still imposing despite the decay. 8 kilometers of durasteel and composite armor, its spinal, mounted railgun visible even through layers of space dust. "See that?" Cortez pointed to the ship's prow, where the faded emblem of Earth's old United Systems Navy still clung to the metal. First expansion-era design, pre-FTL retrofit. They built these bastards to last. Tvek's frills flushed purple with skepticism. Primitive fusion reactors, analog targeting systems. "My scans show the power core hasn't been active in 3 centuries. This is archaeology, not military salvage." The shuttle docked with a resonant clang, magnetic seals hissing as they locked onto the Defiance's derelict airlock. Cortez grabbed her plasma cutter and motioned for the crew to follow. "You're about to learn why humanity doesn't throw anything away." Inside, the ship was a tomb. Frozen corpses in antique pressure suits floated through corridors, their visors reflecting the salvage team's helmet lights. Cortez ignored them, leading the way to engineering with practiced ease. The team's boots left prints in the dust of centuries as they descended through skeletal elevator shafts. "These conduits shouldn't still be intact," Tvek muttered, running a scanner over the ship's power relays. "The molecular bonds should have degraded." "Titanium-carbon weave," Cortez interrupted, slapping a palm against the bulkhead. Humanity's first attempt at repairing hull material didn't work perfectly, but it kept the structural integrity. She reached a massive door marked primary reactor, restricted access, its surface etched with warnings in 6 dead languages. The crew set to work cutting through the seal. Sparks flew as the plasma torches bit into metal, the ancient door groaning in protest. When it finally gave way, the stale air inside rushed out in a cloud of frozen particulates. The reactor chamber was dominated by the gravitic lance array, a monstrous cylinder of coiled superconductor rings, each larger than their shuttle. Cortez ran a reverent hand along its housing. They called it the finger of God during the Martian secession wars. One shot could crack a continent. Tvek's scanner chirped frantically. "These readings are impossible. The energy signatures are exactly why we're here." Cortez moved to the control console, blowing dust from the keypad. Her fingers danced across the inputs, entering codes passed down through Black Ops divisions for generations. "Omega authorization, Cortez. Lena, reactor ignition sequence initiate." For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then the Defiance shuddered. Deep in its bones, something ancient woke. Lights flickered to life across the chamber, panels glowing a deep crimson as power surged through dormant systems. The gravitic lance's coils began to hum, the sound vibrating through their boots. Impossible. Tvek stumbled back as the reactor core flared to life, its containment field stabilizing with a thunderous whomp. This technology shouldn't function after so long without maintenance. Cortez grinned as the ship's AI voice crackled over dusty speakers. Warning, reactor online. Weapons systems charging. Hostile vessels detected in sector. The voice was female, calm, and utterly terrifying. Authorization required for defensive protocols. Tivek's frills had gone completely white. What have you done? Proved a point. Cortez leaned into the comm. Omega Protocol authorization confirmed. All systems online, prepare for combat jump. The Defiance's engines roared to life, centuries of accumulated debris shaking loose as its thrusters burned blue. White. On the bridge, holographic displays flickered to life, showing tactical readouts of the Scorpius Reach. A cluster of unidentified contacts blinked red at the edge of the system. Those are Vorak scout ships, Tivek whispered. They must have followed us. Cortez dropped into the captain's chair, a seat no human had occupied in 400 years, and cracked her knuckles. The Defiance's targeting systems came online with a chorus of threat warnings. Perfect. Let's show the doc what primitive human tech can really do. The ship's railgun turrets rotated with mechanical precision, locking onto the alien vessels before their sensors had even registered the Defiance's awakening. Cortez didn't bother with hails or warnings. Her finger hovered over the firing controls as the gravitic lance powered up with a rising whine that shook the entire superstructure. Hostiles detected, the AI repeated. Authorization, Omega Protocol, Cortez smiled. Light 'em up. The Vorak blockade stretched across Proxima Colony's orbit like a living net, their organic warships pulsing with bioluminescent veins. Admiral Krell lounged in his command pod aboard the flagship Voracious Maw, his frills rippling with amusement as he watched the human colony's distress signals blink out one by one. Pathetic, he hissed to his bridge crew. They don't even have proper shields, just primitive metal boxes floating in. Alarms shrieked. A Vorak sensor officer's eye stalks whipped toward the display. Gravitational anomaly at bearing 00. Nina. Space tore open. The USN Defiance erupted from warp like a blade from its sheath, its kilometer. Long hull scorched black from centuries of neglect, but its prow. Mounted railguns already cycling up. Lieutenant Marco Ruiz's fingers danced across his targeting console, the ancient systems singing to life beneath his touch. "Oh, you beautiful bastard," he whispered as crosshairs painted the nearest Vorak cruiser. "Let's show these squid faces how we dance." Cortez gripped her command chair as the Defiance's AI flooded the bridge with targeting solutions. All batteries, free fire, gravitic lance on my mark. The first railgun volley crossed the distance before the Vorak could raise their bioshields. Tungsten rounds the size of skyscrapers punched through chitinous hulls, detonating deep inside the organic vessels. Bioluminescent fluids gazed into vacuum as the Voracious Maw's escorts burst like overripe fruit. Krell's frills flattened against his skull. Evasive maneuvers deploy swarm drones. His flagship shuddered as it vomited thousands of winged fighters, each one a living weapon grown for close-quarters slaughter. Ruiz whooped as the Defiance's point. Defense lasers came online. Popcorn time. The ancient targeting algorithms designed for human-piloted fighters centuries ago adapted instantly. Laser grids sliced the drone swarm into drifting chunks of chitin. On the bridge of the Defiance, Dr. Tarvek clutched his six-eyed head as the ship's AI rerouted power without human input. "This is impossible. Your systems shouldn't." "Shouldn't what?" Cortez grinned as the main screen showed another Vorak cruiser exploding. "Learn?" The Defiance shuddered as its secondary railguns found new targets, each shot more precise than the last. The AI was adapting, studying Vorak evasion patterns, calculating weak points in their bio-armor. Krell's panic transmission crackled across all frequencies. "Human vessel, you violate Federation. Omega Protocol recognizes no treaties." The Defiance's AI intoned, its voice like grinding tectonic plates. The main weapon array hummed to life, gravity distorting around the ship's prow as the gravitic lance charged. Ruiz whistled. "That is our cue." His fingers flew over the firing console. "Say hello to my little friend." Space itself twisted. The gravitic lance fired not as a beam, but as a ripple, a distortion wave that sheared through reality. The voracious maw came apart along its spinal ridge, its bioluminescence flaring bright as a dying star before winking out. The shockwave sent the remaining Vorak ships tumbling like leaves in a hurricane. Silence gripped the Defiance's bridge. Even Cortez looked shaken as the tactical display showed the devastation. 12 Vorak capital ships reduced to drifting wreckage in under 3 minutes. Tevek's voice trembled. This was a museum piece? Cortez wiped sweat from her brow. Nah, museum ships are the ones we didn't mothball with live ammunition. She opened a fleet-wide channel to the surviving Vorak vessels. Attention remaining hostiles. You have 30 seconds to jettison weapons and surrender, or we'll demonstrate why this class was nicknamed System Killers. The Vorak response came too fast. Every remaining ship powered down weapons and spat out their armaments in a panicked cloud. Ruiz leaned back, cracking his knuckles. Damn, and here I was hoping to test the secondary lance. Cortez activated the long-range comms, her face hardening as she addressed the Galactic Senate's emergency frequency. Attention, Federation members. This is Commander Lena Cortez of the United Earth ship Defiance. Behind her, the view screen showed the burning remnants of Krell's fleet. You wanted a demonstration of human military capability. Consider this our formal application. She cut the transmission as the Defiance's AI announced new contacts. Federation observer drones, recording everything. Let them watch. Let them see. The bridge crew exchanged grim smiles as the ancient dreadnought turned its prow toward the inner systems, its reactors humming with renewed purpose. Somewhere in the dark, the rest of humanity's forgotten fleet waited. And now, the galaxy would remember. The holographic projectors in the Federation war archives hummed to life, casting flickering blue light across the ancient stone walls. Archivist Zelnara adjusted her neural interface, her delicate telepathic tendrils trembling as the battle footage from Proxima Colony materialized before her. The human dreadnought Defiance tore through Vorak formations like a blade through water, its movements erratic yet devastatingly precise. By the first mothers, Zelnara whispered, her 6 eyes dilating in unison. The data streams scrolling beside the projection made no sense. Their response times, these aren't pre-programmed maneuvers, they're adapting in real time. Senator Vrix loomed behind her, his obsidian carapace clicking with unease. Explain. Zelnara's frills flushed violet, the Zenthari equivalent of a shudder. Watch the flagship engagement sequence again. The Defiance takes exactly 3 salvos to identify the Vorak flagship's shield harmonics. By the 4th volley, they'd recalibrated their entire weapons array to bypass them completely. She zoomed in on a secondary display where human gunners were laughing as they worked, their hands flying across manual targeting controls. They're not just learning, they're enjoying it. Vrix's lower arms clenched. The footage showed the Defiance's railgun batteries rotating mid-salvo, adjusting trajectories microseconds before impact. Vorak ships detonated in perfect sequence, their organic armor useless against the onslaught. Impossible, Vrix muttered. No species adapts that quickly, not even the Vorak hive mind. That is just it, Zelnara interrupted, pulling up another feed. The humans aren't coordinating. Look at their comm traffic. The audio crackled to life, a chaotic storm of overlapping voices, laughter, and what sounded like singing. Port battery, adjust elevation 2 degrees. They're clustering near the engines. Already on it, Lalt. Hey, Rail, tell your science boys to stop pissing themselves and give me that shield frequency. I am not your, oh fine, Fefe terahertz, but you'll never, firing solution locked, eat plasma, squid, faces. The Defiance's gravitic lance flared crimson, shearing through the Vorak flagship like a scalpel. Admiral Krell's final transmission played, a guttural scream, cut short by static. Zelnara's voice dropped to a whisper. They're not following protocols. They're inventing them mid-combat. She tapped another console, pulling up historical records. This matches their planetary conflicts: Waterloo, Stalingrad, the Pacific War. Each time, they started disadvantaged. Each time, they learned faster than their enemies could adapt. Vrix's carapace darkened. The implications settled over him like a shroud. The Federation had spent millennia perfecting standardized tactics, believing unity came from uniformity. But humanity, a new alert, blared. Zelnara gasped as fresh data scrolled across the screens. "Senator, the Defiance isn't returning to Proxima. Their fleet is moving." "Where?" She looked up, her tendrils coiled tight with dread. "Everywhere." The star map exploded with crimson markers. Reactivated Titan-class ships, dozens of them, flashed to life across the Orion Arm. The USN Atlantica near Jupiter, the USN Vanguard in the Sirius sector, the USN Thunderchild drifting near the Kuiper Belt, all powering weapons, all aligning warp trajectories. Vrix's throat clicked dryly. They're not defending, they're hunting. Zelnara zoomed in on the Defiance's last transmission before it vanished from sensors. Cortez's face filled the screen, her grin sharp as a blade. "Tell the Senate they got one thing right. We are incompatible." The feed cut to static, leaving only 3 words hovering in the air. "Authorization, Omega Protocol." Vrix stumbled back. That phrase hadn't been used since the first expansion era, since the wars that had nearly shattered Earth before they reached the stars. Zelnara's voice trembled. "What is Omega Protocol?" The senator's carapace rattled. "The oldest human doctrine, the one they used when negotiations failed." He turned to the star map, watching the crimson markers converge. "It means total war." The bridge of the USN Defiance hummed with barely restrained power, the crimson glow of reactivated systems casting long shadows across the command deck. Alien trophies lined the bulkheads. Vorak frill fragments, Zephyrian carapace shards, even a severed sensor array from Krell's flagship. Commander Cortez leaned back in the captain's chair, her boots propped on a console still sparking with residual energy from the battle. Dr. Tevek hovered nearby, his 6 eyes darting between the debris and the human crew's casual disregard for it. A proximity alert blared. Lieutenant Ruiz didn't even look up from his station. Zephyrian dreadnought decloaking at fey clicks. "They're hailing." Cortez smirked. "Put him through." The main viewer flickered to life, revealing Fleetmaster Draxus, in full battle regalia, his obsidian carapace polished to a mirror shine. Or it would have been, if not for the cracks running along his left mandible. The alien warlord's 4 arms were raised in the universal sign of surrender. "Human vessel," Draxus boomed, his voice translator crackling with static. "I come under flag of truce." Captain Vance stepped forward, his cybernetic arm whirring as he crossed it over his chest. "Truce, you sent 3 fleets to burn Proxima Colony to cinders." Drax's frills flushed violet. "Shame, or maybe fear. A miscalculation. The coreward systems are yours if you stand down." The bridge crew erupted in laughter. Ruiz nearly fell out of his chair. Cortez wiped tears from her eyes. "Oh, that's rich. You think we want your backwater planets?" Draxus' claws twitched. "What else could you?" Vance tossed a data crystal onto the comms panel. It flickered to life, projecting holograms of secret Senate meetings. Alien voices whispered orders. "Purge the Talaxians before they develop warp tech. The Krill hive. Mind is too dangerous. Sterilize their homeworld." Tefek's central eyes widened. "Those are Federation security codes. These records are classified beyond what?" Cortez interrupted. "Beyond your precious rules?" She kicked her feet off the console and stood, looming over the hologram of Draxus. "You banned us because we didn't fit your neat little hierarchy. But we saw the truth. The Federation doesn't uplift species, it culls them." Draxus' carapace rattled. "You don't understand. The Vorak were once like you, young, defiant. The Senate showed us other options." Vance's fist clenched. "Yeah? Well, we're fresh out of options." He nodded to Ruiz. The lieutenant tapped to command. The Defiance's weapons array powered up with a bone-deep thrum. Draxus' image flickered as his ship's shields engaged reflexively. "Wait," The Zephyrian's voice cracked. What do you want? Cortez picked up the data crystal, turning it over in her fingers. Answers starting with why the Senate really banned us. Silence. Then Draxus sagged, his frills going dull grey. Because you were the first species to survive the tests. Tevek inhaled sharply. The tests, the war games, the membership trials. Draxus' claws dug into his own carapace. They weren't evaluations. They were filters to find races too dangerous to let live. Vance's cybernetic fingers flexed, and we passed. More than passed. Draxus looked at the human crew with something like awe. You adapted mid-battle, learned our tactics faster than we could change them. The Senate saw the footage and panicked. Cortez barked a laugh. So they kicked us out before we figured out their game. Ruiz whistled. Damn, we must have really scared them. Draxus' image flickered again as his ship's power fluctuated. You did, and now you've reactivated the Titans. The Senate is evacuating Zentha Prime as we speak. Vance stepped closer to the viewer, his scarred face lit by the crimson glow of the Defiance's core. Tell them not to bother. We're not here to destroy the Federation. Draxus blinked. Then what? We're here to remind you. Vance turned to Cortez. Show him. The commander tapped her console. The main viewer split, showing Earth's blue marble floating in space. Then another image, the USN Atlantica's Nova core igniting, casting Jupiter's storms in stark relief. A third, the entire Sol defense fleet, hundreds of reactivated Titan-class ships powering their warp drives in unison. Draxus made a sound like a dying engine. By the void. Vance smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. You banned us for being unpredictable. Fine, let's show you chaos. The transmission cut. The bridge crew exchanged grins. Ruiz cracked his knuckles. So, Zentha Prime. Cortez dropped back into her chair. Set course, maximum burn. As the Defiance's engines roared to life, Tevek stared at the humans with dawning horror. You're not just going to attack the Senate, you're going to tear down the whole system. Vance adjusted his sidearm. Now he gets it. The warp drive engaged, the stars stretched into streaks, and the galaxy held its breath. The Sol system had never looked so alive. President Ava Kim stood on the observation deck of the USN Atlantica, her reflection warped in the curved glass as Jupiter's storms churned below. The planet's red eyes stared back, an unblinking witness to the armada forming around it. Dozens of Titan-class dreadnoughts floated in formation, their hulls scarred from centuries of neglect, now thrumming with power. Reactor cores glowed like newborn stars. They're calling it the Great Awakening, murmured General Okafor beside her, his fingers dancing across a holographic display. Every museum piece, every derelict we left to rust, they're all answering the call. Kim didn't smile. Her eyes tracked the USN Vanguard as it slid into position, its railgun batteries rotating silently. How many? 312 capital ships, twice that in support craft. Okafor's voice cracked. Madam President, we're looking at the largest fleet assembled since the first expansion, and it's all ours. A chime sounded. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a harried Vorak transmission. The creature's bioluminescent frills pulsed erratically, its voice distorted by panic. Sol System, this is Remnant Fleet Alpha Vorak. Cease mobilization. The Senate has revoked your ban. Kim flicked a finger. The transmission died mid-plea. On the Defiance's bridge, Lena Cortez leaned back in her command chair, boots propped on a console. The holographic wreckage of the Vorak home fleet still spun lazily above the tactical table. Lieutenant Ruiz whistled as new signals popped up on the scanner. Boss, we've got Zephyrian dreadnoughts forming up near Pluto. Looks like they finally decided to pick a side. Cortez smirked. Bet they're real sorry about that unanimous vote now. A new voice crackled over the comms. Captain Elias Vance, patched in from the USN Retribution. Cortez, status. All systems green, Nova core primed. She tilted her head. You sure about this play, Elias? Once we light the fuse, there is no going back. Vance's cybernetic arm whirred as he clenched his fist. They made the rules, we're just changing them. Back on the Atlantica, Kim straightened her jacket. The entire bridge crew fell silent as she activated the fleet-wide channel. Her voice carried across 300 ships, through every cockpit, gunner's nest, and engine room, people of Earth. The words hung in the air. For 2 centuries, the Galactic Federation measured us by their standards. They called us fragile, unpredictable, incompatible. Her knuckles whitened around the podium. Today, we remind them what those words really mean. A technician shouted from the pit. Nova Corps at Faye. Kim didn't blink. Admiral Singh, execute Operation Midnight. The Atlantica's core flared blinding white. Energy rippled outward in a shockwave, distorting space-time as the supercapital's warp drive engaged across the fleet. Identical signatures flared to life, a constellation of artificial suns igniting in perfect sync. Ruiz whooped as the Defiance's deck plates vibrated. That's our cue. Kids, lock and load. Zepyrian Fleetmaster Draxis watched in horror from his flagship's bridge. His tactical officer stammered, Sir, their energy signatures, they're not aligning for defensive formation. There, Draxus' 4 hands trembled. They're forming a spearhead. The Vorak remnant fleet didn't even have time to scream. The human armada tore through local space in a synchronized warp jump, their trajectories converging on a single point, Zentha Prime. On the Retribution, Vance studied the incoming Senate transmissions, pleas, threats, last-minute negotiations. He muted them all. Dr. Tivek, now sporting a hastily painted human flag on his exoskeleton, adjusted his scanner. Captain, the Zepyrians are hailing us. They're offering full Federation membership, immediate seat on the High Council. Vance chuckled. Tell them we'll discuss it. He nodded to his navigator. After the dust settles. The warp tunnel collapsed. Zenthar's violet skies filled with fire. 300 human warships dropped out of FTL, directly above the Senate spire, their weapons hot, their shields flaring. The Defiance led the charge, its gravitic lance humming with pent-up energy. Cortez's voice rang across every alien channel. Galactic Federation. This is Commander Lena Cortez of the United Earth Starship Defiance. You have 10 seconds to surrender. Somewhere below, Senator Vrix dropped his datapad. The screen cracked, displaying the last message from Earth Command. You wanted to see human warfare. Front row seats now available. The countdown began. The Senate chamber trembled as alarms wailed through the crystalline spires of Zentha Prime. Senator Vrix clutched his obsidian carapace, 4 arms flailing as the massive shadow of the USN Defiance blotted out the violet sky. Ambassador Krell's bioluminescent frills flickered erratically, casting jagged shadows across his panicked face. Impossible, Krell shrieked, his voice cracking. No ship can penetrate our planetary shields. A deafening roar split the air as the Defiance's gravitic lance carved through the Senate dome, like a knife through paper. Molten alloy rained down, hissing as it struck the polished floor. The assembled alien delegates scrambled for cover, tentacles and appendages tangling in their terror. Captain Elias Vance stepped through the smoke, his cybernetic arm gleaming in the emergency lights. His boots crunched on shattered crystal as he approached the cowering Vorak ambassador. You were saying something about primitive kinetics. Vance's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Krell backpedaled, his frills now pulsing a sickly yellow. This is madness, the Federation will... The Federation, Vance interrupted, just watched your home fleet turn to scrap. He tapped his temple, activating a holo display that showed the wreckage of Vorak warships drifting near Proxima. Took us 6 minutes. Your entire military doctrine, obsolete. Senator Vrix staggered forward, his carapace plates rattling. You engineered this, provoked us into... Commander Lena Cortez dropped from a rappel line, her boots hitting the floor with a thud. We didn't provoke shit. She tossed a data crystal at Vrix's feet. Your archives, every species you tested before us, wiped out when they failed. The Zephyrian purge of Fae, the Cerulean cleansing. Her knuckle tattoos flexed as she clenched her fist. We just passed your little exam. The chamber screens flickered to life, showing President Ava Kim standing before the assembled Titan-class fleet near Jupiter. Members of the Galactic Federation, her voice echoed through the ruined hall. You sought to measure humanity by your standards. A mistake. The view zoomed out, revealing hundreds of reactivated dreadnoughts. We don't conquer, we adapt. Krell lunged for a fallen guard's pulse rifle, only for Vance's sidearm to press against his forehead. The human captain didn't fire. Instead, he reached into his coat and tossed a small tablet at the ambassador's feet. Red, Vance commanded. Waterloo, Stalingrad, the Pacific War, every time someone thought they had us figured out. He leaned closer, his scarred face inches from Krell's quivering frills. You banned us for being unpredictable, should have banned us for being thorough. Outside, the Defiance's engines thrummed, shaking the very foundations of Zentha Prime. The other Titan-class ships began their descent, their silhouettes blotting out the system's sun. Brick sank to his knees, his forearms trembling. What do you want? Cortez grinned, slapping a fresh magazine into her rifle. Samey thing we've always wanted, a seat at the table. She kicked the data crystal toward him. Only now, we're bringing our own damn chairs. The last screen showed the human fleet aligning their gravitic lances, not at Zenthar, but at the dead space beyond the galactic rim. President Kim's voice rang final. You asked how humans conquer. We don't. We outlast, we endure. And when the next threat comes knocking, the lances charged, casting the Senate chamber in crimson light, you'll be begging for our kind of chaos. Vance holstered his sidearm, turning his back on the shattered Federation leadership. As he strode toward the Defiance's waiting shuttle, he didn't look at the cowering aliens, didn't glance at the wreckage of their pride. He simply activated his comm. Defiance actual mission accomplished. The shuttle doors sealed behind him as the last human warship powered up its drive. Below, the Senate Dome's wreckage glittered like broken glass. Above, the stars burned unchanged for now.